I'd like to call to order the February 18th, 2014 regular meeting of the Bowling Green Board of Commissioners. I'd invite you to stand if you wish as I lead the invocation, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Father, we thank you for a wonderful sunny day. We're thankful that the sun is shining and the snow is gone. Lord, we thank you for the wonderful community we live, and we pray that you give us wisdom and guidance as we consider the items before us tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Scheller, please call the roll.
Commissioner Waltrip.
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Denning.
Here.
Commissioner Hill. Here. Mayor Wilkerson.
Here. Under awards and recognitions, I would like to remind anyone if someone would like to provide an invocation for the Bowling Green Board of Commissioners meetings, if you'd contact one of the commissioners or Ms. Schaller, we'll be happy to make those accommodations. Also, on Friday, February the 28th, the WKU Innovation Center asked me to make sure that people were aware of the IDEA Festival that's being hosted here in town at the Downing Student Union Auditorium, that will present many ideas from many different speakers about creativity and innovation. That's Friday, February 28th. All right, Mr. DeFebo, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I have two, Mayor. Thank you. The first, with your courtesy, Commission's courtesy, I'd like to add a late file to the agenda. The JDIP committee met at 2 o'clock, and we would like to offer this for your action tonight. It concerns a workforce agreement with the Chamber of Commerce in Warren County.
All right, to add that to the agenda, I need a motion. A second, please. Motion by Waltrip, a second by Hills. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Waltrip.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Denning.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Wilkerson.
Yes. You said you had one other item?
Oh, yes. The other item is the most important one tonight, maybe. We're here to present the 2014 sidewalk program. I'd like to use my city manager time to condense your discussion of this, and coming forward would be Kyle Hunt and Melissa Kanzler to make the presentation of staff's 2014 recommendation. We didn't want to have a work session on one item, so that's why we're using this tonight.
Welcome, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. DeFebo. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight we'd like to present the candidate projects for the FY 2014 Sidewalk Construction Program. Before I talk about the individual projects, I'd like to provide a brief update and some background information, and then go on to discuss the projects. Since the program's inception in FY 2008, we have constructed, or there's pending construction, just over 8 miles of sidewalk throughout the city. For this year, there have been $400,000 appropriated in the FY14 budget for sidewalks. However, there's also an additional $420,000 that has been accumulated over previous years. So a total budget for this year is $820,000. So we're going to build several sidewalks throughout the city with this amount of money. One highlight to the program I'd like to bring up is that we have revised the public involvement section. Melissa presented that in November of last year, and I'll touch on that briefly in a moment. This year, as with years past, we use criteria-based selection to determine which projects will be constructed. We use 5 criteria, with higher score being better. This helps us to establish an order of construction rather than just going out and subjectively picking locations throughout the city. And then, as with years past, locations with existing sidewalk on one side were not considered for the program. Again, here are the 5 criteria that we look at. Connectivity, we look at closing gaps within the network. We look at location, how close a particular candidate project is to a school, a park, a high pedestrian usage area. There's a financial component. If there is a grant or some sort of outside funding, that is a scoring mechanism. We look at technical feasibility, or how easy a location is suited for construction. With that, we look at grade changes, drainage, utilities, things like that. And then we also look at walkability. That factors in the safety component of the program that looks at locations such as Scottsville Road, high ADT areas, would receive a higher score than a local residential street or a cul-de-sac. And then for any projects with a tying score, estimated project cost will be the tiebreaker. As I mentioned, one aspect of the program that we recently revised was the neighborhood outreach and involvement. We decided to change this recently due to the fact that we wanted to gauge support for the candidate projects early on in the project timeline, rather than going out and getting survey and design finished and finding out that maybe a project is not as popular as what we originally thought. We get to find that out now at the beginning of the project to save that time and manpower. We have several phases that we implement throughout the project timeline. We look at, or what we do at the beginning of the project is send out a preliminary notice or notification to the residents in the neighborhood where a project is recommended. This lets them know that their neighborhood is on the list. It's at the top of the list. It is recommended for construction. And we also, at this stage, we provide a comment card that they can submit back to us. And with that, they can give their support or say that they're against the project, as well as give a reason for it or against it. Once the letters are sent out, we schedule an open house for each location. This is the pre-design phase. This is where we have just a conceptual layout to show the residents, to say we propose the sidewalk to be on this side of the street, and it's between these cross streets. Once we gather all the comments back, we issue we have now what's called a projects or issues page on the city website, where we update residents to the status of the project, whether it be in design, property acquisition, construction, things of that nature. And like I was saying, once we gather all the comments, we present this to you at the work session. Again, all the neighbors or the residents are notified of the working session date and time, so that they can be present to give their opinion if need be. Once a project is approved and moved forward to construction, we proceed with survey and design. Once that's finished, we have a second open house at the post-design phase, and it's at this meeting that we show residents specific impacts to their properties, whether that necessitates easement acquisition, or if there's removal of personal items on right-of-way, in which we would discuss inconvenience payments. And with that said, here are the FY 2014 proposed locations. We have 8 of them. We've got Covington Street between Lehman and Scottsville Road, Pearl Street between Boat Landing Road and Beauty Avenue, Lehman Avenue between Fairview and the Bypass, High Street from 14th to Cabell Drive, Meredith Drive, from Ogden to the Bypass, Cherry Drive from 10th Avenue to High Street, Emmett Avenue from Russellville Road to Nashville Road, and West 11th from Vine Street to the end of street or the end of city right-of-way, for a total length of just over 11,000 feet or just over 2.2 miles. And if you have any questions for any of these locations, feel free to ask. The first location is Covington Street, again from Lehman. We'll stretch from Lehman, where we have just completed sidewalk recently, all the way to Scottsville Road. The main driver for this project is, of course, Covington Woods Park. However, there are also other recently completed sidewalk sections, such as 11th and 10th. I would like to note, currently we are proposing construction between 10th and Lehman to be out in the street due to the width of Covington in that section. This will minimize impact to the yards along that stretch, and then also we will propose construction within the park property.
Before you go, will that affect parking on Covington?
The short answer is we're not sure yet. We'll make that determination once we proceed to design. If parking does have to be eliminated, we prefer to eliminate it on one side of the street only. And again, we'll make that determination once we get further into design, if this project
Was that discussed with the residents when you had their meeting with them?
It was. That was a major talking point during the public meeting.
Pro or negative?
Yes.
Okay.
But like I said, we'll make that decision once we get survey completed and get into design.
I I guess this is the point. I'll just go ahead and, I know the Smalls are here and may have other comments to make later on, but I did receive an email from a gentleman who was not going to be present tonight, who lives in Covington Street there. Mr. Stein indicates that he would prefer a bike lane or a dedicated walking path rather than the actual construction on that area. I don't know what that does or if that was discussed at that meeting or not, but I told him I would bring that up tonight.
Where does he live, Mary?
He lives between Euclid and Edgewood. Yeah, right
That's
about
right.
where he's pointing out.
That is something we did discuss with him during the
You did talk to
meeting.
him?
We did.
Thank you.
We can consider that if that's the direction you want us to take. Of course, with this being the sidewalk program, we focused on installing sidewalk at this location. So if that is one option that you want us to consider, we can go that direction.
If you don't mind, if you'll explain a little more what he was referring to so citizens will know.
I'll let Kyle describe better what a bike lane is and what that means.
Okay, basically what that is, instead of constructing the sidewalk, there would just be a striped portion similar to what's on I believe, Chestnut Street, just a dedicated bike path. Of course, that would substantially reduce construction cost. Whether it would improve safety or not, that's debatable. But again, if that's one direction you want us to proceed, we can definitely take a look at that.
That's still at street level. He's just
It would be.
painting
It
on the
wouldn't. It would
street.
not be elevated. That's correct. It would be at street level.
Did you all have that discussion, though? What was the response of most of the citizens?
I think the majority of the residents are in favor of building out into the street to minimize impacts to the yards. However, the discussion did come up with removal of on-street parking. And again, we told them what I'm telling you tonight. At this point, we can't give you a definite answer because we haven't proceeded to design. But our preferred option, if it did have to be eliminated, would be on one side of the street. Which side that is, honestly, I can't tell you yet.
If you're going to have a dedicated bike lane, that would also have to preclude parking also, right?
That would.
In order to be effective.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So I guess when Jeff brought that up at the meeting, what was the response of the people there? Was anyone else in favor of that strategy, or
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's for sure, though, that we can't have parking and bike lanes both, right?
Well, that's the question that we're going to have to answer once we get into design. Whether that be a dedicated bike path or sidewalk, there's still a defined amount of space taken up from the street.
Right.
So once we determine what the final width of the street will be compared to what regulations we have regarding on-street parking, then we'll be able to make a final determination.
there are some bike paths though with parking? Is it just on the other side? It's not the street side. It's the. Or am I mistaken?
Now, if there was a bike path here, it would be out in the street between 10th and Lehman, similar to what we're proposing now with.
I guess what I'm saying is, have I read somewhere where they have had in some communities bike paths and parking though on the same side, or am I mistaken?
I'm sure that's possible if the street's
Oh.
wide enough to support that.
Okay.
Any other questions? The next location is Pearl Street.
Can I go back?
Yes, yes, sir.
I think this slide perfectly shows the vision of the program. You have a high possibility of a walk intensive out on Scottsville, Broadway. Then you have Lehman, then you have connective streets there that we have put in over time. Now you have it all tied in where people can walk from one segment to another. And I think that was the vision of this sidewalk program.
And one thing I forgot to mention, you'll see on all of these slides, the green segments are existing sections of sidewalk. Some may not be able to see that. And the yellow portions are what we propose. So you can see how we're trying to complete gaps within the network. Any other questions on this location? Again, here is Pearl Street. It connects the recently completed Boat Landing Road sidewalk project to the existing sidewalk on Lewis. Also here is community action about a block away from the proposed construction. And also there is the, it's off the page, but the greenway down close to the boat ramp, on Boat Landing Road. Here is Lehman Avenue between Fairview and the bypass. Again, we're closing a loop around that segment.
Just for my information, when you build it on Lehman, is this going to be a curb and sidewalk project, or will you
Yes,
still
it'll be
have
curb, gutter, and sidewalks.
So that ditch on the right-hand side will be
Be filled
culverted?
in. Right.
Culverted?
Yep. More
Replacement
than
of
likely what will
culvert.
happen, a pipe will have to be installed under the sidewalk to allow for drainage. Next location is High Street between 14th Avenue and Cabell. Here you can see the Ogden sidewalk that was recently completed. I believe that was a FY12 project. And then Meredith from Ogden to the bypass. Once Ogden was constructed, a gap was created between along Meredith between Ogden and the bypass, and that triggered that moved this particular location up on the list. Here's Cherry Drive between 10th Avenue and High Street. Have existing sidewalk along 10th and along High. The park area here. Next we have Emmett Avenue between Russellville Road and Nashville Road. You can see the greenway that comes down Creason, turns down Emmett, down Industrial, with the ultimate destination being the South Campus, Nicely Center.
Again, I can't see color, so
Okay.
you're building from Nashville Road to
All the way from-
Industrial, and then from the railroad to,
Yeah, we will tie into the existing greenway here,
okay.
and then we will, between the railroad track and Russellville Road, we'll have a section there also.
So that will not be on both sides of the road?
No, it will not. It will only be on one side of the road. And we will, I'm sorry. We will touch, at this time, we don't propose any modifications to the greenway itself. We will just tie into it as part of construction.
It just looked like two lines to me.
And it's kind of hard to see, I'm sure, from where you're at. The white line you see is just the center line of
That's the street.
the street. That's
And
correct.
that will have a ditch in between it, correct?
Yes, that's one thing that we'll have to look at. If there's enough right-of-way, we could build on the back side of the ditch. However, if we're limited on right-of-way, we may do like we proposed on Lehman, and put a pipe in under the sidewalk to minimize impacts to the private properties. Have 11th Avenue from Vine Street to the end of city right-of-way. Here, just off the page, is what's called the Foundry. Now, that was a major factor for this location scoring so high. And of course, you can see all the existing sidewalks in the area. Any other questions about the locations? Okay. This time I'd like to turn it over to Karen Foley with Neighborhood and Community Services to go into depth a little bit more about the neighborhood outreach.
I've not used this clicker. I'm hoping I know how to use it. As Kyle described earlier, the first thing regarding outreach that takes place is a detailed letter that goes to the property owners that would be impacted by each of these locations. It includes a schedule of the personal property reimbursement, the inconvenience payments. It lets people know what that is. For example, on the Covington Street project, we did put a detail in there about this would be constructed out to the roadway, so they get an idea of what the project looks like. So that's the first thing that goes. Wow,
Toward the side.
wrong way. Included in with that letter is a stamped envelope that also includes a comment card, and this is basically what it looks like. The front side, we have each of the response numbers included, so we know which properties are submitting comments back, or not everyone adds a comment, but we'll know where those cards are coming from. So those come back to us. We time the deadline for the response cards to come back about a week following the open house. And we mentioned it is an open house. It's not really a neighborhood meeting style, because we want to make the best use of everyone's time. So we have a start time and end time, and people can drop in. They're typically right after work in the evening. I think they were all scheduled for 4:30 to 7, and that way hopefully people have time to do that. We left the window open for about a week following that, because we knew some folks would want to come to the open house and ask direct questions, think about it, and then turn in a comment card. And we had comment cards available at each of the open houses for people to submit. And we did have 3 different open houses where we could. We tried to put some projects that seemed to make sense together at one open house. And that was helpful, because we had some property owners that actually were interested in multiple projects. And we tried to schedule them at a place that was convenient. One, of course, was at the clubhouse at Paul Walker at Covington Woods Park. Another one was down at Parks and Rec, and the third one was actually at Holy Trinity, and it was very close to Emmett Avenue. I'm not sure if any of you have seen this page. This is actually on the BG-CAN website, which is linked up to the city website. It's projects and issues, but this is organized basically geographically, so someone can go on, they can click on the map of where they think their neighborhood is, and they can see a list of proposed projects, including sidewalk projects or traffic control changes, any of those sorts of things, and also maybe some of the issues that are raised at the stroll. You may have remembered me talking about this page. Well, this is what it looks like. If you go to this website right now, you'll see, for example, there is a pending project for new sidewalk on Lehman Avenue from the 31W bypass to Fairview. And then we can update this as needed. And basically what's in the comments right now is we're having a work session tonight on this date. And it also has a worker who's assigned to that particular project. So right now, the worker assigned to this is Kyle. Anyone can click on this and they can shoot Kyle an email. At some point in time, after these projects are bid for construction, that person, that worker, may change to David Hayner, for example. And we can go in and we can update this as needed. But this is a good way that folks can just go directly to this page. We had this web address available at the open house. Along with Kyle, had some of his business cards, so that if people wanted to contact him or they had questions about their particular property, they had a way to get in touch with him. The kinds of things that we expect to hear or that we do hear when we're asking for input or ideas or what people's thoughts are on these projects. We have property-specific things that we expect to hear. These are I have this tree in my yard, I really want to save it, or I have this driveway that I'm very concerned about. We expect to hear those sorts of things that are specific to someone's specific property. There's also questions about, well, how's this going to affect the drainage? How's this going to affect our access, driveways, those sorts of things? What's the project going to look like? Because again, people are trying to envision a change in their neighborhood. So those are things we expect to hear and we do hear about. And then from time to time, we do hear more generalized concerns. These would be things that are more in the, are you a fan of sidewalks or are you not? Or are we spending the money in the best places on these sidewalks or are we not? So that's what I've got on here by way of generalized concerns. Typically these are things like, I think they use the street 2 blocks over more than they use my street. Or, well, what happens after this sidewalk is built? Who takes care of it? Who's going to mow the utility strip? Those sorts of things. And then the general comment from some folks, well, we think you should spend your money somewhere else, or a different neighborhood or a different part of town before you come to us. So those are sort of the generalized things that we hear. Specifically related to the Covington Street neighbor input, a couple of things that we're showing on this slide. When we send the comment cards, in the letter it specifies, please return this response card back by a certain time frame. If you do not return a card, then we will assume that you have consent for this project. So that is qualified in there. And the reason why we kind of take that stand is that we feel like by the City Commission establishing a new sidewalk construction program back in 2007 or whenever that was basically our elected body representing the people of Bowling Green saying, new sidewalk construction is a priority to us, and so we are erring on the side of building new sidewalks. And so each year, as you all choose to continue to fund that program, that's kind of the stand we're putting forward with the assumed consent. If you don't tell us otherwise by coming to an open house or completing a comment card, we are assuming that this is okay by you. So that's why we have an assumed consent, and that's why we choose to do it that way. We understand, we've actually checked with Dr. Victoria Gordon up at WKU's Department of Public Administration, whatever that particular department is called. I had always heard that there are different rates in terms of for surveys by which you can say, yes, that is a good response rate. We've confirmed with her that for your average vanilla return to mail survey, that 20% would be considered a good return. You can consider that to be statistically good. So that's just a context for what your bare minimum for whether you're getting a good response or not. And we did include the stamped envelopes, so I'm sure that helps. But the response rate on this particular project was 63%. We did not send duplicate notices, so everyone who owns a piece of property gets one vote. There were 27 open house attendees. We had a response of 63%. People who actually took the time to complete a response card. And you see what the numbers are in terms of support and non-support for both with the assumed consent, which includes everybody, including those who didn't send something back, and those who submitted a card. The sort of things that we heard about, initially there were some concerns about impacts to yards, and we had a few folks who, when they were reading the letter, they didn't catch the part about this is actually going to be constructed in the section that's actually roadway right now. So once we were able to clarify that understanding with some folks, some people did change from non-support to support because they're like, oh, well, if you're not bothering our yards, then we're good. So that seemed to alleviate that particular concern. There are some concerns about impacts to on-street parking, mostly concerned that parking would be completely eliminated on the street. And I think most folks who brought that up as a concern said, hey, there's some folks who have some, someone has a Bible study, someone has, a Saturday brunch, those sorts of things, and they wanted to be able to have that flexibility. And so that was one of the things they noted. There was concern on the corner there at American Bank, basically suggesting, well, why wouldn't you go on the other side of the street? And of course, they do have some landscaping that's there at the corner that's potentially impacted. For Lehman Avenue, we only had one open house attendee, but we did have a 50% response rate on the property owners there. I'll go ahead and tell you there is one concern. There is a very old ash tree that's there in front of, I think it's Grace Bible Church, that's mid-block. And there are some folks who go there who are concerned that they want to make sure that that tree can be saved. And I think Public Works believes that that is doable. On Pearl Street, we had 2 open house attendees with a response rate on the cards of 38%. There were 2 concerns there from 2 different churches related to how their driveways are configured and being able to preserve some access along there, which we think is doable also within the design. On High Street, a 32% response rate on the cards. No one came out to the open house. And we're not aware of, no one's told us of any concerns or impacts. On Meredith, also a 50% response rate, also no open house attendees. We did have a couple of cards that came back where people said that they were opposed to the project, but they didn't say why they were opposed to the project. We did note, just reviewing the area, that there are some existing parking pads, which are basically these areas where someone has paved from the edge of the street up towards their yard, basically as kind of their own additional little parking space. And there are several places in town where we have those. So we don't know if perhaps the objection has to do with those locations or something else.
Karen, what do we do in situations like that in the past?
I don't know that we've had that specific on this
Yes.
sidewalk. Go
We
ahead.
have.
In those cases, we negotiate an inconvenience payment for the property owner if that parking spot is on right of way, whether it be concrete or asphalt. There is a set dollar amount per square foot that we compensate the property owner for any area that's removed during construction. And so far, that seems to be agreeable with those that have been impacted.
And what happens if people continue to park on it?
Well, in those cases, the actual sidewalk is built across that, so it's hard to access that area by vehicle.
I do know of a greenways path where cars continue to park actually on the greenway.
Yeah, the greenways are a little bit different in that they're built at grade. There's no elevation difference between the street and the greenway itself, such as out Cemetery Road. You can pull off Cemetery Road onto the greenway. With the sidewalk, with the curb and gutter there, it raises the sidewalk, so it makes it more difficult for a vehicle to park there. But like I said, the inconvenience payments seem to be
Is that what we
working so
did?
far.
Excuse me, is that what we did on Cabell Drive there on the school side of
Mhm.
the bypass? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cherry Drive, as you see here, we had 7 open house attendees and a response rate on the cards of 69%, and a 78% project support on those response, or 85 if you go with the assumed consent. The concerns there, I'm not sure if you all are familiar with this particular area, but it is a very wooded kind of neighborhood there. We did have some folks who commented about the trees and being concerned about some of the trees coming out, what impact that would have to some of the wildlife in the area. There is a location at the top of the hill on a particular lot where there is some existing parking pad there. And so they were a little bit concerned about that just because the way their particular lot is sloped, it's sort of an unusual sort of case. And so they are concerned about, what would happen if that particular parking pad went away. Because as we know in the wintertime, suddenly we know more during the wintertime, with snow and ice, those elevations can make parking a little bit more of a challenge. There did seem to be some support. There's actually a triangular area along Cherry Drive that's along right-of-way. This was the location of a SNAP grant. The very first year we did SNAP grants, and there's a nice little seating area and some landscaping there. And there was a suggestion, it'd be nice for the sidewalk to sort of meander instead of just hugging the curb in that location, because it is a nice little park area there. And then through this, we also did hear a request for basically a curb cut or some drive access to a parcel right now that's landlocked. And this would be, I wish I had the map to show you exactly where that was.
Is it next to the 2-story White House down at the bottom of the hill?
Yeah. I'm not sure.
Next to the parcel that,
I don't know. How far back? Which page it's on?
reason I ask that is I know how much water comes off that hill. And if you open up curb cut on there, you're going to essentially flush flush the hill down that one area.
Where is it? Oh.
Okay, see at the corner on Old Fort and Parkway, there's a
I'm thinking is it?
there's a
Is it
landlocked
there
parcel just, yeah, right there. That's what I'm talking about. So, but if you open that up, I mean, I guess there's a way to do it, but, you know, we built that nearly 2-acre retention
Yeah.
basin.
Yeah,
and
that lot in question, it does have frontage along Cherry, so we would be able to provide an access drive, at least along the sidewalk itself,
Off of,
off of Cherry to allow them access. And with that, the drive section is elevated to allow water to flow down the gutter. And then we could
I'd like to see that design when you're done.
Yeah. And then we can also slope the drive so that it would keep as much water off the back from going across as possible.
Depends on where you're going to send that water.
Well, behind the Muslim building at the, you know where I'm talking about, where I built the drainage basin? You know where the end of the storage units are? Not that lot, come a little down there. Right there,
Right
behind the first building, and then those three, I built a 2-acre retention basins about 20 feet deep to catch the water coming off the hill.
Yeah.
There's a lot of water comes off that hill.
Yeah, that's something that we'll have to look at once we get into design.
Thank you.
Mhm.
You should go to the next meeting.
Well, I traded with them for some water storage down the hill where Steve's going to build that building to take it off the hill.
On Emmett Avenue, as Kyle noted, there's existing greenway. So we did have a little bit of confusion from some folks who were like, well, are you taking that greenway out? Are you know, what are you doing here? So we did have to make contact back with a few people to make sure that they understood we're not disturbing the existing greenway, and we're not, you know, coming on the other side of the street. We're on the same side of the street as a greenway, but just filling in some gaps. So once those folks understood that, they're like, oh, okay, well, I wasn't really sure what you were doing. We had a 30% response rate on the cards, and only one open house attendee. He was in favor. Again, just the clarification where Greenway joins. And then with West 11th, there's, I think, only 5 property owners there. We did have one attendee, and we had 50% response rate on that as well. No concerns or impacts were raised. However, we happen to note we have strolled this area a couple of times, and there is a spot on the opposite corner of where the sidewalk would go where water seems to stand. So our suggestion was, hey, is there something we could do to kind of fix that problem while we're out here on this location?
That would be good, actually, that water stand, the water there stands on both sides. I called Jeff when we were having a torrential downpour, and he informed me that he was aware of it already. So if we could take care of that, that would work out really good.
I'd just like to make a couple comments. Most of Karen's presentation represents changes the Commission asked for last year in our process, and I hope you find it acceptable based on your input last year.
Appreciate that. Now, I know we had some people show up in the audience. Are there any comments that you'd like to make before we, Mr. Langley?
Mayor, City Commissioners,
Name and address.
I'm Don Langley. I live at 714 Eastwood Street,
Thank you, sir.
and I love to get out and walk. I like to walk in the neighborhoods, I like to walk downtown. And what I'd like to see on the streets in the neighborhoods that do not have sidewalks is white striping all over the neighborhoods to where people can walk on the roads that don't have sidewalks, and there would be a stripe from 3 to 4 feet from the edge of the curb, and you'd have walkers walking on the walkways. I'd call them walkways, And the bikers, that would be a bike path or a bikeway also. And of course, joggers, runners, they'd be on that too. But they would have a set area where they would be walking. Instead of just walking one side of the street, some people walk. The other side of the street, some people walk. There's traffic coming from both directions. If you had them all clearly marked off, then it'd be a lot easier for people to feel safer in the neighborhoods walking. And I'd also like to see the white striping in the downtown areas. For instance, if you started from State and Main and you walk to River Park, take a left on River Park, come back up to College Street to Main, that is approximately 1 mile. And then if you wanted to walk up the hill to Western or bicycle, when you get to the top of the hills, you turn left on College Heights, come back down State Street, come back down to Main. You've walked approximately 1 mile, 6/10. Total 2.5, 3 mile walk, which is an excellent area for walkers to walk in. And I'd also like to see markers in the downtown, Riverwalk, Western areas. When you start walking, if you go a half a mile, then there's a marker, half mile. If you go 1 mile to Riverwalk, there's an arrow pointing on the bypass. When you get to State Street, there's another arrow pointing back up toward the hill to Western. So walkers, bicyclists, runners, they've got areas marked off in the city where they know they feel safe. We get a lot more traffic coming to the downtown area, walkers, bicyclists. Like to see bike racks, downtown area where bicyclists can come park their bikes. And I think it'd make a lot nicer area for the tourists that like to get out and walk when they eat in a restaurant, and they can walk around the downtown areas. They know where they're walking, they feel safe. The streets are marked off with white lines, and everybody knows where they're walking or riding their bikes. And of course, those areas that are walkways and bicycle ways, they would have designations like a bicyclist every so many, like a half a mile, there'd be a bicyclist printed out on the street to where people know that there's a walkway there, and there'd also be like a jogger printed out on the street to where people would know where to walk. And you'd get a lot more exercise, you get a lot more people in the neighborhoods walking too. And I just think it would be a great atmosphere for a healthier Bowling Green. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Langley. Is there anybody have any other comments about the sidewalk program this evening? Come right ahead, Ms. Ball. Name and address, please, for the record.
Julie Small, 823 Covington. I just want to say we've worked a long time to get sidewalks on Covington. We've lived there 27 years. Hadn't happened yet. Now that we're this close, I know there was a lot of discussion at the beginning about striping, and I think it probably works in some areas, but there's high traffic on Covington, and people feel at leisure to drive fast because it's wide. They pass cars. Nobody drives the speed limit, and I think something painted on Covington is not going to be enough of a deterrent visually. When I see moms with strollers trying to navigate Covington in our block, it's just frightening. I mean, we get in our car and drive to the park with our grandsons or go down the alley and around the corner, and putting a sidewalk on one side, cutting it into the street would be, in my opinion, kill two birds with one stone, and maybe even cost less, but it will slow down traffic and provide walkers a safe place to walk. Runners, and Mr. Stein is a runner, runners aren't going to run on sidewalks. They want flat. They will run in the street no matter what. So I really respect his opinion, but I think I think that sidewalks would work better for our part of the block and connect us to Potter Gray, Lehman, the park, 10th, 11th. I mean, you saw the map. There's sidewalks all around us, but not on the main street. So anyway, that's just my opinion. And thanks for your time.
I like what you said about the mental deterrent of the sidewalk in the street. Narrowing the street would cause people to slow down. That's always been a tough speeding area, even further down on Covington, the 6700 block too.
Yeah,
so.
and they have sidewalks on both sides. But yes, so thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Cassie Lambert. I live at 807 Edgewood Street, and we are one of the houses at the bottom of that hill, and the tree line, I was the one concerned about the trees, catches a lot of that water and keeps it out of our house and our basement. So I just wanted to add that to the list of concerns, that after we've thought about it, we want to make sure that we're not going to have water flooding into our basement if all that trees go down, and what'll be done to kind of help keep that out of our yard.
Okay. If it's built in the road, we won't be taking any trees down, or is that correct?
That's along Cherry.
Cherry.
What she's referring to. Along that section, the right-of-way narrows and the trees are close to, if not within right-of-way, so that's something that we'll have to look at that time once we get into design. There's a possibility that we may have to take some trees as part of the project.
Where are you talking about on the trees? Which?
It's right next to the triangle where
Okay.
it curves down and goes there. And we don't know how much water it's catching and stopping, but I mean, a lot comes down off that hill. We've been very lucky that our basement's never flooded and we don't have any issues, and I just want to make sure that stays the same.
And you're referring to this area?
I'm trying to think. I travel that every day. I was trying to think what trees were there that would be affected. Okay. They'll have that noted to do their best to try to save as many as we can. Any other comments? Commissioners? Yes, ma'am.
One question, referring to the Covington Street project, it looks like the other sidewalks that'll be coming into Covington are on the opposite side of Covington. Are there going to be crosswalks or lined areas for people to cross over to get to the sidewalk? So if I come down 10th, for example, on a sidewalk,
that's correct.
I have to cross the street, correct,
right,
to get to a sidewalk?
Yeah, this is at a typical four-way stop, so yes, there would be striping there. This, at the mid-block crossing at 11th, we would typically sign and stripe that. We've also done that recently on Patton Way. We've got a mid-block crossing there. I can't remember the cross street, but once we put sidewalk in there, we did put a mid-block crossing with signage.
Okay, great. Thank you.
By signage, you're not making that a three-way stop. You're just
No, just a crosswalk ahead
okay.
sign.
And back at Lehman as well?
I'm sorry.
Back at Lehman?
Yes, there would be striping going across Lehman as well.
Yes, sir.
The only comment I have for the last young lady is that obviously I wouldn't think that if the city were to do anything to affect your property that they wouldn't do anything to create a problem for you, is what I'm. So I hope that makes you feel better.
And thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Febo.
Thank you.
Do you have any other comments tonight?
Thank you.
All right. Could we have approval of the minutes for the regular meeting on February 4th, 2014?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hill, second by Williams. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Waltrip?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Denning?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Wilkerson?
Yes. We have a time in our meeting for public comments. If there's anyone in the audience that has an issue to bring to our attention that's not on tonight's agenda, we'd invite you to do that this time. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. Seeing none, we'll go to the second reading of Ordinance 2014, number 1.
Ordinance rezoning real estate. Ordinance rezoning a tract of land containing 1.44 acres from HB Highway Business to RM4 Multifamily Residential located at 242 Audley Avenue, presently owned by Charles and Barbara English.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hill, second by Denning. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Waltrip?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Denning?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Wilkerson?
Yes. Excuse me. Municipal Order 2014-19.
Municipal order approving the appointment of Joe Sadler to the Bowling Green Fire Department Burn Victim Fund Board of Advisors.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hill, second by Williams. The next several are appointments to various boards and commissions for the doing certain business for the city and making recommendations. We appreciate their agreeing to serve to help our communities, and this will go on through 4 or 5 of these items. Is there any discussion on Mr. Sadler for the Fire Department Burn Victim Board? Please call the roll.
Waltrip?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Denning?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Wilkerson?
Yes. Municipal Order 2014-20.
Municipal order approving the appointment of David Southard to the Bowling Green, Warren County Historic Preservation Board.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hill, second by Williams. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Waltrip?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Denning?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Wilkerson?
Yes. Municipal Order 2014-21.
Municipal order approving the appointment of Dr. L. Michael Trapasso to the Hobson House Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hill, second by Waltrip. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Waltrip?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Denning?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Wilkerson?
Yes. Municipal Order 2014-22.
Municipal order approving the reappointments of Jackie Strode, Brett Hightower, and Edwin Phelps to the Bowling Green, Warren County Military Liaison Board.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hill, second by Williams. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Waltrip?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Denning?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Wilkerson?
Yes. Municipal Order 2014-23.
Municipal order authorizing appointments to the Citizen Review Committee as set out in the Community Development Block Grant 5-Year Consolidated Plan.
So
moved.
Second.
Motion by Hill, Waltrip, second by Hill. Thank you, Mr. Waltrip, I appreciate it. That only took me about 20 hours to get together, so thank you.
You're going to have to speed up.
I'm not even going to call for discussion, let's vote on it.
Waltrip?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Denning?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Wilkerson?
Yes,
You did a wonderful job.
yes, sir, I can tell you're really pleased, thanks.
We support you 100%, Mayor.
Municipal Order 2014-24.
Municipal order authorizing change order number 1 to the contract with Train US Incorporated of Louisville, Kentucky in the total amount of $28,571 related to bid number 2013-54.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hill, second by Williams. Mr. Febo.
Thank you, Mayor. There's 2 parts of this municipal order. The first deals with our relationship with Train, in which they come into our police department and make recommendations to improve the energy efficiency of that building and to keep it modern in terms of energy use. They make certain recommendations to us to achieve that goal. The second is that we sometimes have emergencies while this is happening, and we had a boiler go out at the police headquarters. So tonight you have a combined municipal order. The first is to spend roughly $24,271 to reflect the recommendations made to us by the energy savings study, and the second is to $4,300 in labor costs that we needed to act to make sure our police officers had heat in the building. Jeff Lashley is here if you have any questions.
Any comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Waltrip?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Denning?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Wilkerson?
Yes. Municipal Order 2014-25.
Municipal order authorizing change order number 5 to the contract with AMEC Environment and Infrastructure Incorporated of Nashville, Tennessee for final design services for Butler County landfill improvements, bid number 2012-20, in the amount of $17,800.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hill, second by Waltrip. Mr. Febo.
If you're like me, you ask, when will these change orders stop? There's good reason for this. If you look in your packet, you'll notice that there's a email from state officials at the Department of Waste Management to Jeff and Matt concerning the need for this additional change order and their willingness to pay for it. I think it's easy to get caught in the change order roulette, but it's important for us to remember that in the end we will get $1.6 million of other people's money and need to only spend $85,000 of our own. In order to do that, we have to make sure that people given the 1.6 are satisfied. So they want a change order, so we recommend that you approve this change order to get the $1.6 million later. Again, Jeff is here to explain in more technical detail, but that's essentially the deal.
Comments or questions? I want to thank the Kentucky Division of Waste Management. We had a conversation this week about some different things, and they seem to be very pleased with how we're operating, and I appreciate them helping us in this project. Please call the roll.
Waltrip?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Denning?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Wilkerson?
Yes. Municipal Order 2014-26.
Municipal order approving the 5-year consolidated plan, analysis of impediments to fair housing choice, citizens participation plan, and the residential anti-displacement and relocation assistance plan for community development block grant entitlement funding and authorizing submission to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
So moved.
Motion by Hill, second by Waltrip. Mr. Febo.
Yes. As the Commission knows, we've been meeting over the last couple of months to talk about our 5-year plan needed to satisfy the Department of Housing and Urban Development for the receipt of CDBG funds. Brent made the presentation, I think, last month outlining the changes we want to make. Those are reflected in the plan. Brent is here if you have any questions, but essentially this reflects the rules of engagement that we have recommended and hopefully you will agree to going forward. Brent is here if you just want a quick overview of the thing, but if not,
Any
we're willing
comments,
to move
questions, or desire to hear from Mr. Childers? Please call the roll.
Waltrip?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Denning?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Wilkerson?
Yes. First reading of ordinance 2014, number 2.
Ordinance relating to budget amendment. Ordinance approving amendment number 2 to the City of Bowling Green, Kentucky annual operating budget for fiscal year 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hill, second by Waltrip. Mr. DeFebo.
The budget amendment process is the city's method to make sure there's control in the budgetary process. We do this through the budget amendment system. This is our budget amendment number 2, which is pretty good. Jeff Meisel can explain any of the details in the change order. In the budget amendment. Most of those are ministerial, but Jeff, you have any comments?
I'd be happy to answer any questions you all have about it.
Any comments or questions of Mr. Meisel? Given the detailed explanation in our packet, so hearing none, please call the roll.
Waltrip?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Denning?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Wilkerson?
Yes. Municipal Order 2014-27.
Municipal order approving tax increment financing district summary of 2012 incremental revenue and authorizing distribution of $318,997 to the Warren County Downtown Economic Development Authority, Incorporated.
Need a motion and a second? We'll discuss it then.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Waltrip, second by Hill. Mr. Febo.
Thank you, Mayor. This municipal order represents the 80% of the revenue that the city makes available to the Chapter 58 as part of the TIF. We feel that it would be appropriate to table this. There's a few more issues that we want to discuss with the Chapter 58 concerning the calculation. Those just became apparent since press time. Also, as you might know, there's an There's a need for a budget in the documents that we sign with the Chapter 58 that need to be presented. So we think it'd be judicious for us to table this and ask your courtesy in doing so until next meeting.
Motion to table by Hill. Second by Williams. Motion table takes precedence over anything else without discussion. Please call the roll.
Waltrip?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Denning?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Wilkerson?
Yes. First reading of ordinance 2014 number 3.
Ordinance amending Code of Ordinances, ordinance amending Chapter 6, Building Regulations, Subchapter 613, Contractor Licensing of the Bowling Green, City of Bowling Green Code of Ordinances as requested by the Contractors Licensing Board.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hill, second by Denning. Mr. DeFebo.
As Katie read in the municipal order, this is a request from the contractor's licensing board to make changes to governing legislation for their organization and the policy in the city. Mr. Bob Appling's here. He can offer any comments, but it might be helpful if Gene went over the few minor changes in this that are being requested. Gene, would you help us?
Just a couple of things. I think mainly these are just suggestions or recommendations made by the Contractors Licensing Board. I think mainly designed and intended to clarify for that board and for its staff some of the things they wanted to make clear to contractors, particularly who is a contractor in certain situations and what work qualifies for regulation under this one. For example, one of the changes is the definition of general contractor was slightly revised to pick up, to make sure that if I'm coming in and get a license, a building permit to make improvement to my home, I'm not a contractor under this, but it is designed to make sure that if I own a business, if I come in and build a full building permit, they are going to classify me as a contractor because they want to make sure that that work is done properly and done by the proper people with training and education. They also want to clarify that, I guess to pick up people who are flipping homes, that if you coming in and getting within a 1 year period residential permits for more than one site, then you're going to be a contractor now under their revised definition as well. Clarified language that if you're an employee of governmental entities like Western or the city or county, that you're not a contractor if you do work for your employer. But obviously, if entities like the city hire other people come in and do it, then we have to use licensed contractors to do that work. I think those are the main things. These, again, fairly generic and more intended for them to clarify some of the issues they've had in the past. Again, I'll probably defer to Bob if he wants to add anything to it. Or.
No, I think not.
Everybody wants to see your face, Bob.
Bob
out there in TV land.
Okay. Bob with the Contractors Licensing Board, Mayor, Commissioners. There's mostly of it, some of it just spelling. One is mislead, and we went to misled, and what Gene covered on the what makes a general contractor. And we have a lot of people that say they're doing it for their own use, and while they're doing it, be a for sale sign out in the yard. So we wanted to stop that. And one of the things was who serves on the board. Initially, it started like one. They appointed somebody for 1 year, and then 2 years, and then 3 years. But then they wanted them to start serving 3-year periods. So we just cleaned that language up. Liability insurance. About the minimum you can get is $100,000, and we changed that in there. One other thing, it said the original said that I had to request a list of all the subcontractors. We changed that to where my staff could do that, and basically that's just about it. That's like another spelling misspelled word, and we changed it from state vocational to the Kentucky Community and Technical College, which I believe now that it's the South Central Kentucky Community and Technical College. It's been changed 3 or 4 times already.
And I'll make sure everybody understands. This board works very closely, particularly with Jeff's department. I think they work hand in hand, and particularly this last thing that Bob mentioned about the list of subcontractors, that's very useful for Jeff's department as well, to make sure that they pick them up on the contractor licensing end, we pick them up on the business registration end. So that list helps Jeff's department pick up some subcontractors that they may not know are coming in the city and doing work.
Does that subcontractor have to provide a list of employees that work for them? Or going to work for them on that job?
I'll defer to Jeff. I don't think they have to give a list.
We do verify whether or not they have employees, but we don't always get the list of employees.
So how do we know how much money to collect from that subcontractor who's working on that project?
Well, he would be registered with us as a business, and he would report to whether he has employees or not. And if he has employees, he would be required to remit the withholdings on those employees. Is that what you're asking?
Well, how do we monitor? If he says he's going to have 10 employees on the job and he has 25, we're getting paid taxes for 10.
That's a good question. That's why we have our license inspector out there, hopefully getting around and checking them.
If I could answer the question.
The reason I bring that up, we know that that has happened. And we know that we've had local contractors who are paying their fair share, who has told us about other contractors and their subcontractors who are not paying their share. Maybe from out of town. They're working here on that particular project, and
Well, the network we've built is that if Bob runs across them, he reports it to us. If we run across someone, we check to see if they've got a license with Bob. Any building permits that come through, we're checking them to see if they're registered with us to do business in the city. We're also cross-checking to make sure they've got a license with Bob. That's kind of the system and the network we built where we're catching most of them. Now, whether somebody has 10 guys show up one morning versus 20, they're still employees. They're still required to report them. We can't be at every job site in town every day to count heads, but that's how we kind of approach it.
We don't take the number of employees. If they have one employee, they have to have workers' comp insurance, and we require that. And if they have told him they have none, which I'm sure they do sometimes, then we tell them that they do actually have employees. We don't ourselves keep a running total of amount of employees out of the job.
I think it reflects your point of view, Joe. There is always a possibility that someone could do the improper thing and not pay their legal responsibility, but we use a multi-level collaboration with Bob. We use an in-field inspector. We also use the watchful eyes of other contractors who take that responsibility seriously, and we follow up on those complaints. So hopefully with that web of action, we're able to catch those who are trying to avoid paying.
We would certainly encourage any contractor out there that feels they're not being treated fairly to let us know about these situations where somebody might be trying to skirt the system.
And we have in the past. That's the reason I'm bringing it up again tonight. We've had a couple of contractors here in town who have encountered the individual that are supposed to be contractors, and their number of employees doesn't reflect what we get down here. And we want to be fair to everybody, but if we got some guy from out of town that's done some sub work or whatever, then they need to know that we're going to be watching them. That's all I got, Mary.
Other comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Waltrip?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Denning?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Wilkerson?
Yes. And our late file added municipal order 2014-28.
Municipal order accepting recommendation of the City of Bowling Green Job Development Incentive Program Committee and approving workforce coordinator agreement among the City of Bowling Green, Warren County, and Bowling Green Area Chamber of Commerce.
So moved.
Motion by Hill, second by Waltrip.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to need the help of the two members of the JDIP. That would be Melinda Hill and William Waltrip. To help me complete
William
this
Waltrip.
story.
I don't know about that.
I know what his real name is. William, isn't
The
it?
beginning of the story occurred from our action point of view at the last meeting, which we found out through the help from the chamber that there was a new court ruling that made available approximately $74,000 of revenue to the City of Bowling Green's general fund. We used part of that $74,000 already to provide lobbying services in collaboration with other partners in the region to get our voice in Frankfort and Washington out. We've been approached, as you can see by the documents in front of you, by the Chamber of Commerce asking if we'd be interested in a 2-year beta program or a test program to help put local money, $35,000 from us and $35,000 from Warren County to help local businesses in the city and the county attract the type of business talent they need. As we all know, it's often difficult to fill jobs with the talented folks that are needed by industry today. This workforce coordinator would essentially be commissioned by us, Warren County, the city, and the Chamber of Commerce to go out and fill orders for new businesses coming to our community. We think this is an important task for government. After all, we're here to create quality of life. We do that by providing public services, and we also do it by fomenting job creation. And you're not going to have jobs unless you have people with the skills necessary, and we have to be aggressive, I believe, in trying to close that gap between need and talent in the community. So, Melinda, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, thank you, Kevin. I think it's a great opportunity after our meeting today, and I want to stress it's new businesses as well as existing businesses, correct?
Yes.
So I thought it was very interesting that we have already targeted 40 companies with over 300 openings. And this position is going to put to work our citizens. It's either going to get them in that job that they need or point them in the direction for the training they need to get a job. So I think this is definitely a win-win for the City of Bowling Green and Warren County, and I appreciate the Chamber coming to us and wanting us to partner with them.
I'd like to make one other additional comment that over the last, I think, 3 to 5 years, Meredith can correct me if I'm wrong, 85% of our job growth is from existing companies and businesses. 85%. That's a lot of jobs being produced out there by existing businesses here in our community, not necessarily the new ones coming to town, but existing ones that are trying to grow and expand and add jobs. So we got to help them out.
The only comment I'd have would be that the measurements on this program are going to be monitored very closely to see how successful we're going to be. But particularly after the meeting this afternoon, it's apparent that I think this is going to be very successful in getting our citizens, as Melinda said, either to work or the right training they need to secure employment here. So for Bowling Green and Warren County, I think it's a very, very good plus for all of us.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Walter, Commissioner Hill, just a couple of questions. If I understand it right, this individual is going to be responsible for going everywhere, knocking on doors to see if those 300 jobs can be filled, as well as that individual is going to be working with other agencies who may be responsible for training. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, who is this individual going to answer to?
To the chamber. But there's a committee made up of the chamber, the city, and the county, and they have a monthly report and a monthly meeting to see what they have done in the previous month, their goals, where they are, what they've done, what they plan on doing. So they will be accountable to chamber, to the city, and to the county.
Is the Kentucky State Career Center, Job Career Centers involved in this in any kind of way, or will they be involved?
This is Meredith Robinson from the Chamber.
Mayor, Commissioners, yes, we intend to work with all the existing public partners that are tasked with workforce development. This is sort of a triage, if you will, a 2-year trial. We've had great success in our community and economic development. We've had a lot of expansions announced. We have a lot more coming down the pike. And so we need to sort of get ahead of the curve and sort of supercharge our system, if you will, to go ahead and fill those jobs as more are coming. And so we absolutely intend to work with all of the existing public agencies that are tasked with this to just sort of speed up the process and fill the jobs faster than they're currently being done. And we will work very closely with Amy Walker and her team over at the Workforce Investment Board.
Now, Amy is located where?
She's the director of the Workforce Investment Board. She reports to Rodney Kirtley at the Brad. She runs the One Stop. So all the 19 agencies that are charged with workforce development, she's responsible for coordinating them.
Joe, one of the things I really liked about this opportunity, we'll have a lot of applicants, for example, to one position, and that position may or may not get filled, but all those applicants that did apply do not know why they did not get that job. So this will help point them in the right direction if they need more training, if they need a certain certificate, whatever they need, it will point them in that direction to get the needed training they need so they can be successful the next opportunity they have to apply.
Absolutely.
Is there going to be an emphasis on providing job opportunities for our local people? In other words, are we possibly going to see an imbalance of someone somewhere else coming into Bowling Green for jobs, but we have people here that may need training or may not need training? Are we looking at a possible imbalance there?
We intend to work within the existing system. Currently, there are about 12,000 people that are unemployed in our area. And so we intend to work with our existing public agency partners to identify those people. If they are already work ready and qualified, get them in front of the right people to get them hired. If they're not, are there federal programs available to get them the training they need, like Commissioner Hill said, so that next time around they are ready. But there is funding available currently for that. It's just not being matched as quickly as the companies need to fill those positions.
I'm through. I'm sorry.
No problem. Any other comments or questions? Clarifications?
No, thank you.
All right, if there's no other discussion, please call the roll.
Waltrip?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Denning?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Wilkerson?
Yes. That's the last item on the agenda. Our next scheduled meeting is Tuesday, March 4th, 2014. Thank you for tuning in.